Hey guys, how are we all feeling today? I'm feeling fantastic. I don't know. I just woke up. I remembered I'm gonna play Titan Quest today. I'm gonna see Falcor owning noobs, and I felt so happy. I miss this game so much. I'm playing this other game that a friend of mine recommended. He's like, "Oh, the makers of Titan Quest made another game. It's called Grim Dawn." And I'm like, "What is this game?" And and I bought it on Steam. It was on Steam sale, and I played it, and it's literally a clone. It's a clone of this game. It's the exact same. It's the exact same game, but like darker and full of zombies. And the friend had recommended the game and said, "Oh, you should play this game next." And I realized that there's no way anyone's gonna watch me play Grim Dawn because they've already watched like 7 billion videos of me playing Titan Quest, and it's the exact same game. The game is a clone, but made more addictive. Like they were smart about it. They did the creators did everything they could to make the game as addictive as possible. So I was like, I'm gonna play the game to like satisfy my need for a hack and slash game, but at the same time, I can't make a video series. Sorry, Fuddy, I can't make a video series on a game that's so similar. So yeah, that's just some thoughts that came to me, and just replying to Fuddy's suggestion of what game I should play next. I can't play Grim Dawn. It's just too similar. But yeah, moving on. I don't know if you've noticed, I've got 84 subscribers. Damn. 84 people clicked subscribe. I am so honored. If I have one more subscriber, I'll have 85. Which means only 915 to go. But I'm just so happy. I'm very easily, entertained and happy. So 84 subscribers to me is like a huge deal. Uh, Thank you very much, and thanks for all the likes. Um, for those wondering what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about something, again, a little psychological stuff that happens when you're in the prison that is the hospital, but they're trying to save you. Um, I talked to the psychologist when they put me back in the hospital after my whole pain thing that went on. She actually spent a little more time with me because she's like, maybe now he's traumatized and now he doesn't want to do the treatment anymore. That actually happened. Like at first, some of the patients are like, yeah, I can take this, this isn't so bad. Then they hit one hurdle, and they're like, no, I can't do this anymore. So that's where the psychologist comes in, and he or she has to do whatever they can to convince the patient to keep going, because even if they keep going, but their morale is down, uh, that can also affect. So, you got to keep your head in the game. So she was spending a little more time with me, and she asked me some interesting stuff. I'm gonna leave the deeper stuff for last. Hopefully, we'll have time, but I'll talk about some of the like the not so important things that people have to go through. And one of them is, wow, I can't believe inventory is full. One of them is, in fact, superstition. Yeah, I know. It seems, oh, God damn it. It seems like, oh, well, what's the big deal? It's just, superstition. What harm could it do? Superstition is one of the biggest problems that patients have to go through, because especially when it's a long treatment with lots of pain, lots of trauma. Because psychologically, it's a psychological thing. I'd almost say that, and I'm no psychologist, but I'd almost say that extreme superstition is kind of like obsessive compulsive disorder, I guess, or a form of obsessive compulsiveness, or some kind of, obsession, psychological thing, because you can fall into a pit of superstition very easily. Uh, People who have serious superstitious problems are in fact athletes. You will find that athletes that do a sport that requires them to do everything, like for example tennis, you know how it's a solo sport, you don't have a team. I mean, you have people helping you out, but when you're in the game, it's just you, so all the pressure is on you. Whenever you see a sport like that, my boss used to call them, well, my ex-boss, awesome guy, used to call them ego sports, where it's pure ego. Also singers that don't really have a band behind them, or they're the main drive behind the band. Maybe they're the singers or something like that, like the main singers. Or maybe you're in a team, like a basketball team, but you're carrying the team, so all the pressure is on you. Anytime you see someone with a lot of pressure in some kind of sport to do everything themselves, those people tend to be extremely superstitious, to the point where they've made documentaries on these people, and I feel so sorry for them. I watched many videos on this just out of curiosity, and they really suffer. I remember I watched a documentary on a tennis player, and this woman would I don't remember the exact numbers, but she would do like 14 trips around the parking lot, or 14 trips around the stadium, as sort of like a tradition, she called it, or something like that, just so that she has a higher chance of winning the match, winning the game. Things like that, obsession, like that's just crazy. And like you need someone to tell you, hey, this is like completely absurd. Like there's no such thing. Like you're not gonna do better because you go driving around the stadium 14 times, and it has to be exactly 14. And you can even add to it. You can't stop. No brakes. Like it has to be. It has to be a continuous drive. She didn't say that, but I'm just giving an example of how much worse it can get. And with the more time that passes, the worse they get. Now, why am I saying this? Why am I talking about athletes with superstition? Because in a way, when you're in the hospital alone and they give you treatment, but your body is the one fighting, your body is carrying the entire team, there's a lot of pressure on you to do well. How is that person going to respond to the drugs? How is he or she going to respond to the fever that's going to come, or all kinds of complications, digestive problems, things like that. Like maybe they're going to snap, maybe the body won't allow any more chemo, things like that. That happens, and many times, and I've felt this too. I'll give you an example. Way more ahead in my treatment, when I was already doing radiation treatment, I had this thing where I noticed that once, just once, my fever didn't peak, didn't go to the top temperatures, if I slept on my left side. So if I slept on the right side, I felt I have more of a chance of getting fever, but if I sleep on my left side, I have less chance of getting a fever the next day. Completely, absolutely absurd. There's no such thing. There's no proof that that you get more fever from sleeping on one side or the other. And I had convinced myself in my head, no, well, the reason is, it's very simple. The reason is that my esophagus, the stomach sort of feels better if you sleep on the left side. I had heard this somewhere that like it prevents acid reflux and things like that. And I had convinced myself. And that's superstitious. That's complete superstition. There's no proof that that's true. But to me it was. So, I mean, patients go through the exact same thing. And it was up to the psychologist to convince me, hey, Mr. Farkas, that's completely crazy. Or things like, for example, I would refuse to eat certain foods because I was convinced that it would make me feel like pain, and the medication is gonna like, it's gonna be worse for me. The medication isn't gonna be that good. I'm gonna like respond negatively to it and things like that. So I was like, I was falling into that superstitious nonsense spiral downwards, and luckily, not only the psychologist but my mom, who visits regularly, would tell me, hey, you know, like, just keep it together. That's not going to work. that being superstitious isn't going to help you. And I admit, to this day, I still feel kind of weird about sleeping on one side or the other. And that's trauma. That's just, you know, I'm so worried that something bad's going to happen. I'm so worried that I'm going to get bad news if I sleep on one side and not the other. That I try to sleep on the good side. And it's super sad. Like, the more now that I admit it out loud, it's sort of embarrassing, but it's true. And this isn't a game, you know, like, if an athlete wants to be superstitious, that's fine, but in a way, even if it's their life, even if it's, you know, what they dedicate their life to, it's not life and death. To me, like, it's almost life and death, you know? It's like, if I don't do it, will I die? So yeah, I'm still struggling with it. Not as bad as before. Honestly, like, I just fall asleep and then I'm like, okay, if I wake up on one side, who cares? But I admit, I'm still struggling with this. So superstition is one of those things. Look it up. And if you're superstitious, just don't let it get out of hand, I guess. And remember, and just, in my opinion, like, take into account, superstition, in my opinion, comes from an instinct for pattern recognition. You know, it's natural. You don't feel like something's wrong with you if you're very superstitious. Just remember, it's pattern recognition. Your body instinctually picks up patterns and says, oh, you know, like, last time this and this happened when this and this happened. Such a cause made such an effect. So it's normal. It's what saved us from the lions. And now, you know, since there are no lions to eat us, we're still picking up on patterns that make no sense. So yeah, don't feel guilty. Like, I know I don't feel guilty for feeling bad, for feeling superstitious. I just feel like I have to work on it. And that's the only superstition I really have. Then the other superstition that I've had since before is, if I think of bad things for too long, I'm worried that they're gonna happen. So I'm like, no, get out of my head. Get out of my head, I don't want to think about this. That's the only other thing that I have. You know those superstitious things like, don't go under a ladder that's like in a inverted V position because it's bad luck, or don't give a ring to someone directly. You got to put it on a table first, or any surface, or don't pass the salt directly. No, what was it? You gotta put salt on your shoulder. Like, some of these superstitions are, to me, they're just like absurd, you know. But to me, the ones that really like impact you are the ones that like you can invent. You can mentally like invent a reason that's scientific, that has some kind of scientific backing. Like, to me, it was the stomach thing, or maybe, you know, you manifest whatever you think of, and so, you know, it might happen. But yeah, just, I don't know, that's superstition. So, you know, God forbid if you go through something like that, like in the hospital, keep this in mind. Don't let your mind overthink things and start a superstitious spiral that you can't get out of, because it's hard to get out of it. Anyway, that was that was one of the things that we talked about. The other thing is actually it's gonna get pretty deep. It's actually one of those life lessons that I told you about in the beginning of this whole series. There are some things that stick to you. One of them was that the psychologist actually asked me something which I'm not sure a psychologist should ask, but she asked anyway, and I think it's all right. Like, for me, it's fine. She said, "Do you feel like you deserved this, or do you ever ask yourself, why did this happen to me? Are you religious? Do you think God is punishing you for something?" And I was like, whoa, like that's actually a pretty deep question. Like some people might suddenly freak out if they're asked this question. Like I've seen people lose faith in God and things like that. I've seen people give up completely because they're like, why is this happening to me? I've always been a good person and things like that. And I had thought about this before she asked me this, because sometimes you get overwhelmed and you're like, I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But like, why am I suddenly going through so much crap at the same time? And this to me is a valid question. Do I think this happened to me for a reason or anything like that? To me, this is how I see it. I gotta pause for this. Imagine you're a sailor sailing around the ocean. Imagine you're alone with your ship sailing, and you're really good at it. You're a good sailor. You know, you can handle your ship. You know exactly how it works and everything like that. And then suddenly, a huge wave appears out of nowhere. Now, if you're an experienced sailor and not a superstitious one, because sailors are also very superstitious, ironic, are you going to ask yourself, why did God send this huge wave while it's hitting you? Like, oh, God damn it, why is life so shitty? Why do I have to go through this wave? No, you fight. You know, you fight through the wave, you know, you push through, and in the moment, I think, a sailor would think, hey, this is simply how the world works. The ocean has waves. You know, I'm going in the middle of the ocean. Of course a wave is going to hit me. That's how I saw my disease when I had it. It was, this disease exists, you know, like, it's nothing personal. I got the disease. I'm that one in, I don't know, 200,000 or a million or whatever many people have this kind of leukemia. And I accepted that, like when it rains, it's nothing personal. It's raining on the good guys and the bad guys equally. It rains on everyone. You know, we all sort of have this sword of Damocles hanging above us. Anytime we could get anything, or anytime we could get hit by a car. Maybe I got cured, and then the moment I step out of the hospital, I get hit by a car. There's nothing stopping us from that. You know, that's where the whole concept of fate and luck comes from, because you're trying to explain, like, why the hell is that happening? But it's nothing personal. It's just that you're part of. You're that other drop in the ocean, you know. And the way I saw it is like that. And then the psychologist asked, do you believe in the afterlife? And I'm going to try to be for this subject, I'm going to try to be as aware and as sensitive as I can, because talking about loss is no easy task. And some of you might have had a loved one, you know, pass away, maybe recently. So my respects, and, you know, my heart goes out to you. But this is how I see it. Is there an afterlife? As a person who had to study laws of physics for my degree in agricultural engineering, I spent a lot of time studying gradients. Gradients are sort of, imagine like high concentration to low concentration, or one color to the other color in the spectrum, or heat, cold, like what happens, like heat looks for cold, cold looks for heat, high pressure systems look for low pressure systems. There's always movement because the universe is dynamic, right? And this is, if you believe in the human soul, which I do, I think there's a lot of evidence of the human soul. That also is part of the universe, right? We might not be able to touch it physically, but it's still being affected by these laws of the universe, where the polarities look for each other and it's always dynamic, always moving, never static. So this means that if the soul is also affected by these laws, and everything flows towards where it's most needed, then the soul also moves always to where it's most needed. And I know this might sound like kind of far-fetched, but in my mind, everyone has like their ideal place in the universe. And sometimes some people are needed somewhere else just a little bit more than here, I was like, I told the psychologist, I'm like, whatever happens, I'll be okay, because if I survive, then this is where I'm most needed, and if I, move on to the afterlife or wherever, another dimension, then obviously I'm more needed there, So I have no problem. I'm not afraid of death because I'm more needed there, and I'm more than happy to move on and help wherever I can. So if you lost someone, oh crap, if you lost someone, just take comfort in the knowledge that because that person has a soul, they are where they're most needed right now, and that's why they moved on. I don't know. It's just an opinion, It helped me through this entire ordeal, and I never had this. I never had this fear of death because I had this conclusion in my head that if physics works like that, if the universe is that dynamic and it works with gradients, I know it sounds so stupid, it works with this movement where everything goes where it has to go, everything has its place, and sometimes it has to move, then maybe people and souls are like that too. And that's an encouraging thought. So yeah, I told this to the psychologist, and she was so taken aback. She's like, you're gonna be fine. Like, psychologically speaking, she was very taken aback. That's the word. She doesn't need to say anything. Like, I'm fine. But moving on to more important matters, like in Titan Quest, I wanted to say that, and I felt like that's probably one of the that deserved the Titan Quest to be paused, because it's very deep stuff and it's no joke. Life and death is mortality in general is no joke. Some people don't take life that seriously. They're like, oh, okay, when we die, nothing happens. Valid, fair enough. If you believe that, that's fine. But many times I've noticed that they don't actually believe that, or people that say that sometimes, I'm not saying always, but sometimes it's just because they want to go against religion. So, for example, they hate Christianity or they hate religion in general. Ooh, what's that? Oh, that's cool. throne. Fuck you. They hate God. They hate the concept of religion, or maybe they don't hate God, but they hate organized religion. And so, since organized religion has an afterlife, they say there is no afterlife. And but do they actually believe it? That's the question. I'd say everybody should ask themselves, do you actually believe there's no afterlife and no soul? Or are you just trying to make a statement and go against organized religion? Really think about that. Because I used to be one of those people. I hated organized religion. I still kind of hate most of it, but I see, there's some beauty in it. It's sort of like a culture in itself. I'd say my opinion on it would be, I don't necessarily like or not like it. It's like it just is there. My relationship with God and creation and the universe and all of that good stuff is very personal. It doesn't necessarily go with some of the organized religions' doctrines. But ask yourself that. Ask yourself whether you believe in afterlife or not because of hate or because of something else. I met many people who said that they hate, that they don't believe in an afterlife, and then I ask why not? Like, what's the proof that there is no afterlife? A completely normal conversation. There wasn't really a discussion, and after a while we would conclude, oh, it's because that person actually hates the Catholics. And it's like, we can hate the Catholics, I don't mind, but like, really think about as a question, is there an afterlife or not? Does it really depend on your hate? But yeah, it's an interesting subject. Again, very polarized subject, but it's food for thought, When you go through something like this, when you're faced with mortality, you ask yourself these things. And believe it or not, even superstition actually clicks with this subject, because many times you're like, okay, am I praying because of superstition, or am I praying because I actually believe someone's listening? So it's an interesting duality there. You're faced with your concepts of how the universe works and how gods and God and divinity factor into your chances of survival. I don't know what happens with atheists, honestly. To be completely fair, I only really met religious people in this whole ordeal. I never really got the chance to hear what an atheist believes when they're going through something like that. Do they change their mind? Do they suddenly start praying? So if God forbid you went through something like this, please let me know. And you're an atheist. Please let me know if you went through some, change, spiritual change or anything like that. I guess everyone goes through something, like maybe some kind of spiritual revolution, not necessarily religious. But I'd love to know, if something like that happened to you, if made you give up on the concept of God even more, or did it make you believe in it? Were you believing in it just for a need to survive, as a survival instinct, like whatever it takes, or was it really because you saw some kind of you saw the light, in quotation marks? Damn, I hope we don't die here. Let's open this majestic chest. Oh, we're just gonna run. Let's see if we can catch one of them fountains. Oh, we got lucky. Okay, I think we're gonna finish just on time. So yeah, I hope you like this episode. It's a deep subject, but it's a necessary one to discuss when you're going through something like that. And I hope hopefully You might have learned something from my experience, or not. Anyway, I love you guys. See you on the next episode. Bye.